Well, it's so good to have you, Linda. So the purpose of the Thriving Solopreneur podcast is really to inspire solopreneurs and entrepreneurs because the challenge and the exciting journey, let's call it, of starting a business isn't always easy, especially in the beginning. So that's why I like to bring people on who kind of made that step and who are embodying that and who are living that and who've gone through the challenges and yeah, just to bring on some inspiration. And I'm really looking forward to your contribution to this podcast. So to give a quick overview of, in your words, what you said your business was born from inspiration and love, guided by divine intervention. I'm committed to my purpose, always stepping forward to do the work I know is my soul's mission, my calling. So yeah, I really like what you wrote there. And you talk, of course, about how you went from your corporate job and that didn't really work out so well for you. So you made the switch, which is what a lot of people, they're into that. They're still in their old job and they kind of want to go down the entrepreneur route. Maybe they're struggling to kind of make that step. They're really afraid of, oh, how do I do this? I have my safe income. Or others, they've already made the step and now they're maybe like, oh my God, now I need to get clients and they're facing challenges there, or they have blocks with and I know you're big on beliefs, also on work around money, abundance. So I'm really curious to dive into that as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
The wheels are spinning.
So please just take it from
Take
here.
it.
What's
Yeah, so working with individuals who were actually aspiring entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
mainly coaches for the most part, and
Yeah.
realizing that we were all showing up, with a really strong intention of helping other humans, helping humanity and
Mm.
supporting people in their journey, whatever that is. And I've just been led, from lily pad to lily pad, and taking the stepping stones and recognizing each phase of my journey as that next step to help me expand to get me where I am now. So, what continues to show up for me now is solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and people who want to create a better life for themselves, who don't want to live in a cubicle or, that caged existence, and they want freedom. And it can be a challenging leap because so many people have been raised with with the employee model. Our parents are employees, our teachers are employees. Most people around us are employees of someone else and earning a paycheck. So that becomes what's familiar for us,
Mhm.
and comfortable for us. And that's what we know. And we take that, and then we're trying to transition into an entrepreneurial role, which also has challenges in that most people think that being a business owner, you have to struggle and effort and, bust your hump and work 24/7 and, in that energy all the time. And the problem is you can experience success by following that model. But if that's the belief that you hold, as soon as you take your foot off the gas, everything is going to fall apart. So a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs believe that they have to work in their business all the time. So the very thing that they sought to create is
Mm.
it eludes them. They don't have freedom. They don't have um, peace and calm, and they don't get to travel. They don't get to spend more time with their family because, the belief system's getting in the way about what a successful business owner looks like. So they fall out of love, with what they're doing. And that happens over years usually. But what I'm seeing lately is and hearing from other people in the community who are there, like in the banking industry, in the teaching sector,
Mhm.
people are seeing individuals start a business and be so excited about starting this business. And then a year later, they're closing their account and going back to their old job, or,
Mhm.
looking for a job. And it's because of all of those different things, all of those various things. But when I can sit with someone and really help them dissect, their money story. What are their beliefs around success? What was their experience with money? And then tie it in with how the brain works it changes everything, because all of that, then they can connect the dots and see exactly what's been keeping them stuck and holding them back, and how they've been, you know, chasing something, that shiny object, and still not being fulfilled. So a really, really good example. I have several recent excellent examples of people who experience breakthroughs of, oh my God, I can't believe that has been the thing that is creating the fluctuations in my business or keeping me paralyzed from moving forward. One story is a coach that she recently had a massive breakthrough, and she's in Argentina right now, and she actually decided she was going to go to the coast and spend a few weeks in nature by the sea and just process all of this, because she wants to create a coaching business, and she wants to be financially set, right? Because there's so many things that she wants to do with her life. She's very gifted, and she feels paralyzed, and she doesn't know why. So this is why we started working together. She's like, I have this amazing vision of helping people. And I feel like I'm overwhelmed with all the things that I think I need to get in place before I launch my own private coaching. Now, she's been a coach, but she was somebody else's employee as a coach. So working for a business that hired her out for coaching, and she decided she wanted to go out on her own. So here she is, this amazing person with these amazing gifts, and she feels just stuck. She can't move forward, and she doesn't know why. So she wants to create wealth. So that was her thing. I said, okay, well, let's talk about your money story. What was your money story like when you were a kid? So they grew up comfortable. They had what they needed, but there wasn't extra, so can I have this, mommy? Oh, we can't afford that, sweetheart. Or, their vacations were camping, which they loved. She said they absolutely loved camping. But that was an economical vacation, for them. So that's what they did. That was her experience. And at some point, there was an inheritance that came into the family, and I won't get into all the details, but it ended up creating a lot of conflict between family members. There were people who stopped talking to each other. There was just anger and chaos and conflict and pain, around all of this money. And when she looked back at the generational patterns, there was also death. So death created wealth, or wealth created death, caused death, right? So yeah. So when I could just
that's not a
see
fun
her,
association to have, right?
no, it's not. But when we understand, right, our brain has one job, to keep us safe and alive. It doesn't care about anything else. It doesn't care if you're wealthy. It just knows, for her, wealth equated to chaos, conflict, pain, and death. So her brain, she wants to create wealth, but her brain is saying, no, 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 because this is what you think money means. So we tie it all into the law of balance and the law of cause and effect, right? So everything in nature and the universe has to balance. That's like the primary overarching law, and everything kind of falls in under that. But when we understand that, we can look at things as there's an equation. So in the middle, there's an equal sign. Over here is what you believe about money or love or whatever, right? What you believe about money equals what you will experience with money. So if it's detrimental to your survival, your very survival, your brain is going to convince you physically not to take action towards creating it. So in that, this is a discovery call too. This was a connection call. It wasn't recording it. It wasn't a paid session. We just were trying to get to some of the, root of what was causing this paralysis. And when I explained to her that her brain has an association with wealth of pain and chaos and death and conflict, she had this light bulb moment and she said, oh my God, Linda, that's exactly what happened. So I didn't know what the rest of the story was. I said, what do you mean? And she shared that she had created a good deal of money in her life. And then along came this opportunity that she says didn't align with her values. Her ego took over. She wanted to invest a lot of money in this opportunity. And she even borrowed a good deal of money from her brother. She took all of that money and invested in this opportunity. And she ended up losing everything. So there was a lot of shame for a long time. There was a lot of shame, despair. She was anxiety ridden. She was desperate. She was depressed. And she
Mhm.
admitted to me that she almost committed suicide. She had suicidal thoughts and she thought about taking her life because of the shame of it. And it was such a powerful moment when she could see the law of balance in play. This is what I believe about money, because I told her, I said, well, if your brain allows you to create wealth, this over here is the wealth and your belief system tied to it. Over here on the other side of the equation, you absolutely will create circumstances and events, people, things that match your belief
Mhm.
system about money. Your
Mhm.
brain is here in the middle trying to keep you paralyzed and sabotaging you from creating wealth because your very survival is threatened. I mean, not only did you experience this as a child over and over and over again, this pattern throughout your ancestors and in your life, you also created it. Once you had wealth, this is what happened. And your brain is registering all of it. And so your
Mhm.
brain
Mhm.
is saying it is absolutely critical that you do not create wealth because you might die. And your brain has that one job, keep you
Mhm.
safe and alive. Right. So it's these things. And that was the breakthrough moment. And she said, where do I sign up to work with
Mhm.
you? Because she had no idea that that had been keeping her stuck and creating
Mhm.
this pattern, this negative pattern with money her entire life.
Mhm.
And now she changed her story about money and she's off integrating and digesting
Mhm.
and processing and she's at the sea and she's having a fantastic time. So that is just a really good example of
Mhm.
you know how I can help people see what's holding them back and what's keeping them stuck, and just tying law of balance with how your brain works. It's so
Mhm.
powerful.
Wow, yeah, I really like that. And also where you mentioned that she had a lot of, I guess, pain and also, some pressure that built because she really wanted to manifest that or like create that in her life. And then she even borrowed the money and that kind of crashed. So then, and I mean, it's easy to take things personally, especially if you run a business, you're like, I am the business, like thinking in this kind of way. And if the business doesn't work as you want to, then taking things personally, and that can get very emotional. Like I know from my personal experience. So that's really beautiful that you were able to help her to shift her perspective and be like, hey, no, this is not what's going on. It's not that something's wrong with you. It's just, there is, like you say, there is your brain. Your brain is trying to keep you safe, but there are some associations that are going on that you might not even be aware of that happened. That, I mean, she could remember those, like you said, right, when you were talking about it. But that's not something we're aware of when we're going through our life, right? We might look at, okay, I did this, I tried this for marketing, it's not working, and we're looking at the surface level, but we might not go deeper and actually explore those deeper levels where those associations are working in the background. So I really love how you brought that up. And my question is kind of, okay, let's say somebody is listening to this and they're like, yeah, I'm noticing some struggles with my cash flow in my business, or I feel like there's a glass ceiling like that I can't break through. So what do you say to somebody like that? Like how do you start on that journey of discovery? Is that like, do you need somebody that you talk to, or is that like a journaling process? And in my last session I had with Kesha, she also works a lot with beliefs with people. So and she also said that, if you're serious about making a shift and changing something, then work with somebody because they will kind of push you and they see different things. But if somebody's listening and they're just curious, they're like, yeah, I kind of would like to figure that out. I feel I might, fall into that category, or I might have some associations and I'd like to discover them. Like, where do you begin? How do you start this work?
Yeah, I think it's crucial to understand that everything starts within. So when we don't address what's going on inside, we can get in the energy of bucking the current, struggle and
Mm-hmm.
effort when it comes to marketing, when it comes to advertising, when it comes to networking. And we can feel like, I don't have clients, so I need to go do all the activities. I need to market more and advertise more and network more and get myself out there more and blah, and all of that. But it has to start within, because in anything you're trying to create, your marketing and your advertising and your networking is going to come from us from such a beautiful place when you're radiating your mission and radiating from your heart, your love for what you do really comes through. And if you're in a place of, I have to market more, I need to be at this networking event, I need to talk to as many people, people can feel that. They can feel that when you're either authentic or desperate. And sometimes I know that it feels desperate because if you don't get more clients, you could go under, right? But when you talk about fluctuating sales, there's a reason for that too. It just really depends on what was the person's money story. So the live event that I'm doing here in town, I know this is a global broadcast, but I really wanted to do something live and in person. And so at the end of the month, I'm holding a workshop for solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and all the small business in town. We live in a small rural community here, and there's a lot of small businesses. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know many of the owners over my years of networking here. And there's similar stories. It's either, and this isn't just the stories, but business always slows down this time of year. I can never make more than X. Every time I get close to closing that big deal, it falls apart, and so there's reasons behind that. So somebody who says we always get slow this time of year, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So where did that belief come from? And one business owner I worked with recently, she had that story. Every fall, we get slow every fall. And it's a painful cycle because it involves having to lay people off. And for them, a mom and pop shop, having built a team over the spring and the summer when business was good, knowing full well in their head, right, they were going to have to lay these guys off and their family men, and they feel bad about that. But the business isn't there to support it. So we, got to the root cause. And when she had that breakthrough, because her family was in construction growing up, and hearing that message over and over and over around the fall and the winter, we always get slow this time of year. Layoffs occur, whether it was her family members or her family members were having to lay people off. That was her story. That was her truth. That was her experience. So she carried it through to her business and her adult life. And when she could see that and stop saying it, change the story, get rid of that pattern. It was, she could release it, and then they weren't slow anymore in the fall and the winter. So it just really depends on what the story is. If somebody has the belief that they can't ever make more than X, it's only because that's where their financial thermostat is. That's where they're familiar and comfortable. So it's about helping them expand and raise that thermostat so that it is safe for the brain to allow more money to come in, and that you can create more money in your life without it being taken away. Because I can tell you, your thermostat is set here and you come into a large amount of money or more money than you're used to, you will manifest undesired expenses to take it away. And I mean, everybody can see that, right? I tell this story all the time. Back in 2020, before I knew anything about financial thermostats, when we here in the States got stimulus check, from the government, and we received $2,200, and it was very exciting for us because at the time I wasn't bringing in any money. So we were relying on my husband's paycheck to pay the bills, and within 10 days, both of our air conditioning units broke, and we had to get them fixed. I guess how much it costs? $2,200, right?
Wow, crazy.
Yeah, so it was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? But now I know, because now I can see it. And everybody can relate to that. They got, a $600 tax refund or a bonus or something, and it's out of the blue, it's unexpected. And then you get excited, and all of a sudden, your dishwasher breaks, or you need new tires, or Johnny breaks his leg and you have a medical expense. So there's always something, to come take it away if it's not familiar for you. So when I work with business owners or individuals, it's about helping them understand where their financial thermostat is set. And then we do the work to raise it so that they can create more.
And keep more, or actually.
And keep more.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Got it.
exactly. So there's always a reason for the cycles, and it's just everything that we experience is self-fulfilling prophecy. So what do you want? What is your story, and what would you prefer your story to be? Because you can change it.
So it's finding out what your story is and what do you want your story to be. I like that, how you phrase that. And it's very interesting that you talk about that, and I'm seeing parallels, with people attracting a partner that they're satisfied with, and the whole thing of, okay, you attract and some people, they might be in relationships that they don't like so much, and they're like, okay, this is basically the same partner, it's the same pattern with a different face.
Right.
With, just a different person, but the same patterns playing out in the relationship. And that also being in business, when you're running a business, or even with your body, like some people who might struggle, because the work that I'm helping people with is about establishing habits and helping people to get control, or let's not call it control, but like get into a flowy experience and relationship to their body, where they're happy with their health and where they're happy with the amount they're exercising. And I feel that's those topics, there's some relation with that thermostat, right? So that, I mean, there might be the financial thermostat, but what about the thermostat you have with your body, right? But I'm aware that your focus is really on the finance, from what I understand.
I mean,
Or do you
I
work?
can focus
Yeah,
on anything. I can
yeah.
focus on anything.
And
When it comes to health and weight, again, it's about what is your story. So
mhm,
you can see that children who are raised in homes where they eat close to the earth, where exercise is a priority, those children are not generally going to be couch potatoes.
mm,
They have ingrained in them what to eat, how to eat, how to prepare, clean eating versus junk food. So it
mhm,
really, everything ties into what we
mhm,
experienced growing up, and that becomes our
mhm,
truth and who we are.
mhm.
So to change that, we have to understand where it came from first. And it's the awareness, every time I work with
Yeah.
somebody, they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. You can't change what you're not aware of. So you're just, going through life on
Mm,
default mode. You have no idea what's driving your reality and what's creating
mm.
your world for you. Once you know, when you see it, you can see the patterns and you can understand how to break it down and how to change it.
Wow. And that's so beautiful. I think when you can take somebody, and you bring the example of a child that grows up in an environment where there might be good habits around food, or maybe there's bad habits around food, or maybe that's a family where it's easy, the money is flowing, and they have, even when you talk to people, like, and I've been tuning more into my emotions and what I'm feeling the last few years. And sometimes when you talk to people and you talk about money, you can kind of feel the energy that they have around it. Like with some
Mm-hmm.
people, they're really easy around money, and you can feel like that feels different talking to them about that. Or even when somebody talks about the project that they're involved in, like if the, and then I can feel it with myself too, like is the energy flowing, or are there things that feel really heavy? Like when there's the energy is heavy. And I can only assume that might also be connected to those associations that people have, because they might be trying to drive full steam ahead with their business, but their mind or their brain is shouting, don't go there, like you said with that woman, like there's death, you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe some bad associations that are pushing you. But really seeing that, okay, we can help and empower people, and that's what juices me up when I'm working with people, giving a person a different, and enabling them to have a different experience from what they've grown up and the things they brought with them, and they want to switch to a different lane, and they're really struggling to do that. But then actually seeing that, no, that's possible to do that. You can have a different experience if you put in the work, right? And just
Mm-hmm.
seeing that and helping people with that. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. So
And
it's
don't you
amazing.
find, I'm curious,
Hmm.
you find that it's really important for people to understand their why, because that's what
Hmm.
drives us. If we don't have a really strong why, we're not going to stick with it, you know?
Hmm.
And for weight is such a tricky thing. So for women, I have found there's so much of, sexual abuse in the history. So someone may have put on weight to
Hmm.
protect themselves from being vulnerable, because they believe
Hmm.
if they lose weight, they'll be attractive and they'll draw attention that they don't want. So it's not
Hmm.
safe to be
Hmm.
thin. It could be a heaviness, a burden
Hmm.
that they carry, right?
Hmm.
So there's all different kinds of things when it comes to weight and health. And yeah, it's all about, did you grow up in an environment where your parents had a sedentary lifestyle, and did you eat fast food all the time because everybody was on the run? So everybody's overwhelmed and they're overscheduled and they're running around like crazy people and they don't have time to eat right. So that's like, the trifecta in there somewhere of what you're learning, as you grow up, what's familiar and comfortable for you in your nervous system. There was one instance, it wasn't somebody I worked with. It was a story I remember from several years ago that I heard from another coach about self-sabotage in business when it comes to that big deal, getting that big deal and reaching that financial goal, if you will, right? Like, I've arrived. And this woman, her issue, she was like, every time I have a big deal on the line, I sabotage it. Something happens, I do something and I sabotage it and it falls apart. And understanding her story, where her father was a business owner, entrepreneur, and worked himself to death trying to get to a certain financial goal. Then there was another goal, then there was another goal, it was like never enough. And so he just basically killed himself, right? He had a heart attack and died. So her model of entrepreneurship is, if you generate a lot of money, keep getting the big deals and going after the financial goals, you'll die. So again, our brain simply keeping us safe and alive. And the sabotage is extremely powerful. I mean, that's all your brain cares about. So it will do whatever it has to. It will convince you to sabotage yourself and do dumb things to get you back in the wheelhouse where you're comfortable. This is where I always show people this, the homeostasis walls, in the silo, the silo on the farm. This is where we're comfortable. Our brain is going along, la, 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 right? Just on autopilot, and the programs and the conditions. And that's what it likes. It likes to pump the heart, or pump the blood through the heart, and grow your skin cells and all of the things, right? It's doing it naturally. But we have this programming too that our brain is running off of. Safe and alive, safe and alive. All it knows is what you've experienced. So here comes personal development. Here comes Linda. Here comes Lucas trying to show you a different way. Oh, that's in the blind spot. Oh my God. Okay. I want to change that. So here's what we do. We go outside the walls, and we start going outside the silo walls, the homeostasis walls. Our brain goes into action and sends this panic through our body of anxiety and all the chemicals and all the things. And it's like, as long as you are, now this isn't permanent, but most people, you get so far away from their ecosystem where they're trying to change who they are, their brain is sending all of these signals to the body, trying to get them back into. So paralysis, anxiety, depression, whatever that is, right? Get them back in the silo walls. As soon as we get back in the saddle, brain relaxes and calms down, and that feeling goes away. So that's why it's so important to help people understand what sabotage is, when it will happen. And the faster they're moving through personal development and faster they're moving in the changes, the faster the sabotage is going to happen. The faster they're going to start freaking out. So I always tell people to expect it.
Yeah.
So that they know when they start falling back into their patterns of overwhelm and whatever it is, they know it's coming, and they can recognize it when it happens. And then we can help, right? You and I can help them as coaches push through that, because we know once you get to the other side, eventually you have the new neural pathways, and this is how you think now. So like, if I were to go back to how I thought before, the way I was, would have to have a lobotomy. Like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't force myself to go back to the old ways of thinking and the old ways of responding and being triggered. The triggers aren't even there anymore. There's nothing there to ignite. So you absolutely can experience transformation. It just takes focus, right? And working with a guide and a coach.
Yeah.
You and I both have coaches. We always have coaches. We always have someone else helping us look in the blind spots. So
That's I just want to highlight again what you said, because I think that's extremely important. Where you're like, okay, like the brain is used to navigate, or to be in that silo, kind of the safe zone, right? You know what's gonna happen, you know what to expect. Your nervous system is kind of used to that. And then you step out of it, and your brain is trying to protect you, to get you back into that old balance that it knows, right? That the known reality, maybe let's call it, right? So, and what I find so important is that how I understood what you're saying is, when you experience that, it's not that, you're screwed up, something's wrong with you, you can't change or anything. No, it's a natural response, and it's a sign that you're changing. So the self-sabotage is a sign that it's working. It's not a
Right.
sign that it's not a sign that something's wrong. It's a good sign, because you're
Right.
changing. So your brain
Right.
is like, oh my God, like and Joe Dispenza, he talks about it. Yeah, like when you go like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start this tomorrow. I'm gonna do it, and your body, he says, and your body's like, don't worry, like he or she, they're not gonna do it. Don't worry, relax, right? But if your body's like reacting, then it's real. It's getting real. You're making the shift real. Whether that's shifting your relationships, or whether that's going, all into your business, or changing your money story. Like when you feel that shift, and the self-sabotage coming up, and the fear coming up, and the depression, even, like you said, right? That's a sign you're changing. So and you said, to somebody to help you to push through that, like a coach or somebody who's supporting you, and you said focus. So how do you think about that situation? Like somebody, they're experiencing that and they're really challenged by that. Okay, I'd say first, like, notice is not a bad thing. Interpret it in a way where you're actually seeing what's going on. This is not bad. It's a sign of growth, but you got to deal with it, because if you don't deal with it, and if you're just reacting, you probably move back into the silo, right? Which is not what you want.
Yeah, exactly. Because what's in the silo? All the stuff you don't want. You're just recreating the cycle again. You're getting back into your comfort zone, which is, it's where your brain wants to live. But the most beautiful thing is you can create a new comfort zone. And that
Mhm.
comfort zone is always going to change. If you want to continue to grow, you're always going to expect to be uncomfortable sometimes,
Wow.
you know? So it's like, look at my journey. 6 years ago, I was a risk analyst living in a cubicle, auditing digital files all day on multiple medications for anxiety. And literally, I was like this all the time. Even on 2 high doses of meds, I was like this. So that tells you how much anxiety was going on in my body. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I had gotten so far away from my soul's purpose, my mission, my values,
Mm-hmm.
and I was not living a life congruent and aligned
Mm-hmm.
with who I am. And now that I am showing up and following my mission and my passion, there's no anxiety there because I'm aligned and congruent with my heart and my soul. So I forget where I was going with that, but it's just my personal journey of not really knowing why I was here or what I
Mm-hmm.
was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be doing,
Mm-hmm.
but surrendering to the process, surrendering to merging with that higher power and just saying, okay, what's next, and going from that miserable existence, that woman who had zero self-confidence. um, there was no light in my life. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to give anything to my family. um, I was in debilitating pain all the time. I looked like hell, wasn't sleeping. I mean, it was horrible. To then, looking now in March, I went to Paris and spoke at a women's empowerment summit. You can't explain that stuff. It's just, I allowed my soul to take me where it's meant to go, So we don't always have to know in the moment, why am I here? Because your soul knows. And if you want to start a business, just, allow it to happen naturally. Like, do something that aligns with your soul and your values, and you'll find your purpose. That's really what I help people do,
Mm-hmm.
is just get quiet, and then they get to the intuition and the inspiration and the ideas. And one thing that I want to share too, the power of understanding the flow between us and the larger system, the quantum field, source, the universe, whatever you want to call it. there's us and there's a responding body of consciousness or whatever that is, right? And this work isn't for everybody, and this conversation isn't for everybody. And I recognize that. Like, I want to talk to and work with the people who can get their head around this. But when we can simplify it as coaches in ways that just make sense, it helps people get that clarity and helps them connect the dots and click. It clicks. Light bulb moment goes on, and they're like, oh my God, I am so powerful. I can do this. I see now why my reality is the way that it is, right? So our broadcast, you want to call it a vibration or frequency, whatever, our broadcast is going out to the quantum field, and the quantum field is responding. Now, the other way to look at that is our reticular activating system is a radar, and it's going off of our belief system and our model of the world. So it's seeking out data.
Could you maybe explain what the reticular activating system is for people who don't know that?
Yes. So we call it the RAS, RAS for short. It's a mouthful. And it's a group of cells at the base of our brainstem. It's responsible for awareness, awakeness, alertness, right? So everything that we're aware of in our reality, this is our RAS is at work. So the only thing it knows to go off of is what we expect. And what we expect in our reality all ties to our model of the world, our belief system. What we know is true. What we think is true is different. What I believe is true is different from what you believe is true, all encompassing all the things, right? And so it simply operates from a place of, I am going out into the quantum field of infinite possibilities. The quantum field is infinite potential. Everything you desire exists right there. It's right there. Call it the vortex, whatever you want to call it, right? Everything is there. Your brain will only filter in data that is in waveform, populates it into your reality as what we think of physical matter reality, right? Physical things. So you'll only experience things that make sense to you. And the way that I explain that better is, you and I are sitting here, we're in different parts of the world. We're on a Zoom call. Technology is amazing. We're in different time zones. And we have created this engagement, right? So you posted something about your podcast, or you asked me to be on it. I accepted. We made this arrangement. We have agreed to show up here today. And this is our reality because it makes sense to us. So imagine when we get off of this phone call, I hang up and I go walk out the front door, and all of a sudden I'm experiencing life as a fish. And you get off the phone and you go out your front door, and all of a sudden you're on an aircraft carrier. Imagine what your brain would experience if that was happening to you all day, every day, where you didn't know what to expect. You didn't know what you were going to experience moving from one room to another. You know what I mean? So everything we experience has to make sense to us, because that's what keeps our brain placated. Otherwise, I'm a fish. What do I do now? My brain doesn't know how to respond to that. Or I'm in a different time period. My brain doesn't know what to do with that. All of a sudden, I'm a man and you're a woman. Your brain doesn't know how to. That can't happen. So the law of balance is the overarching.
That sounds interesting.
Right? The law of balance and cause and effect, overarching, laws that are really what's the word? Anyway, they're paramount laws. And so when we get that, everything has to be in balance. Nature, universe, everything has to be in balance. The universe would never allow what I just described to happen, because it would create incredible chaos in the field, in the force, right? Star Wars, the force. And nature can't operate that way. So when you plant an acorn, it becomes an oak tree. It doesn't become a rose bush. Everything, is in balance for a reason. And when we understand that, when we truly understand that, that's when you can affect real change in your outer world. Because when you shift what's important to you, and what that means is you shift your model of the world and your belief system. When you change that stuff, your RAS changes. Your reticular activating system is now seeking out different data. And this is the point where most people will say, oh, the universe started lining things up for me. It was amazing. Synchronicities and people and opportunities. They've always been there.
Mhm.
They just weren't important to you. Being an entrepreneur and a coach wasn't important to me when I was in a cubicle 6 years ago. So I didn't get an invitation to go to Paris. I didn't get invitations to be on podcasts.
Mhm.
I would never experience that kind of stuff because it didn't make sense for me at the time, but now it does. So it aligns with who I am.
Wow. So for me, like right now, that connects with what you said before, where you were like entering this place of quiet and inspiration, where you can connect with your intuition, and you kind of,
Mm-hmm.
and you called it discover your soul's purpose. And that's kind of where the journey takes you then. And you said in the beginning you were stepping from lily pod to lily pod. So you're describing this process of change where you're shifting your own reality and your own belief system and structure, and then your external situation can also shift because
Mm-hmm.
you're allowing for a different reality to occur that is in alignment, that is consistent with the model of the world that you have.
Yeah. I mean, you shift that, then your outer world has to line up. It's
Mhm.
law. That's why it's so easy for me as a coach. It's if you do this, you will experience this. It's just what do you want? And
Mhm.
it's challenging sometimes now because so many people are in a state of high anxiety and
Mhm.
depression, and
Mhm.
they feel desperate and they just want relief from that.
Mhm.
And you can't ask someone who's on anxiety medication, strong, anxiety medication, or just feels so lost and despondent and desperate, you can't
Mhm.
ask them, why are you here? They don't know. They have no idea.
They
You know what I
don't
mean?
can't they
So
can't
you,
access it because their
you
nervous
exactly,
system
they
is
can't
yeah
access that. You got to
exhausted.
start,
Yeah.
with that first,
Hmm.
and help them get to a
Hmm.
place where they can surrender and calm, and
Hmm.
that is turning off all the external noise. That is, stop paying attention to all the external things that you think you control. The numbers on the spreadsheet, the numbers in your bank account, what that person over there is doing, what your business partner is doing, what
Hmm.
your life partner is doing, what is happening in the stock market, what's happening with
Hmm.
gas prices. Like, doesn't matter. None of it matters unless you
Hmm.
make it important to you, and then you will be consumed by those types of circumstances. But for me, none of that is relevant to my experience.
And I love that you bring that up, and that raises a question for me. And yeah, thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much for sharing all of that. And I'm very I'm very exhilarated discussing this with you. And it's great to see your unique take on things because I think about it and like you said, like I have my own lens, my own reality, but hearing it from you, like now how you interpret maybe similar concepts, but in your own way, that's really valuable for me. And this is, yeah,
Excellent. I'm so
I
happy
really
to hear
appreciate
that.
that. Yeah.
Yes. And so, like, I know you have a question, but,
Mhm.
for
Please.
me, it's just been, it's clear cognizance. It's like I
Hmm.
get these downloads of information
Hmm.
or a resource or a teacher or whatever, and it just becomes fact and truth for me because
Hmm.
I have applied what I've learned in my own
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
If I can do this and then do this and then do this and then do this and stay focused and stay intent, then I'm working with the laws of my brain, and I'm
Hmm.
working with the laws of the universe, and I'm working with the law of balance. And whatever I put on this side of the equal sign, I will experience on the other side, good or
Hmm.
bad, doesn't
Hmm.
matter. But we have to understand that the law of
Hmm.
balance is creating everything.
Hmm.
It's monitoring everything. Excuse me. So, what's your question?
Mhm. That's brilliant. So you're saying that the clarity comes from actually you having experienced seeing the cause and effect in your own life, and that's where you're supporting people from, basically. Yeah,
Yeah,
love
because
that.
you can't make this stuff up sometimes. And the most powerful thing I discovered is when you set off a rocket of desire and you put it out there with no resistance to how it's going to come or how it's going to happen or how it's going to work out, and you allow yourself to become the person who will experience that thing that you just set off that rocket for, it has to show up. That's law. And what's really cool, when you set off that rocket of desire, now the quantum field has received it and is going to work to create variables it's inspiring someone on the other side of the world to
Mhm.
make something
Mhm.
that you need to get you to the next, or it's creating someone who wants to take a flight somewhere and they sit next to you on an airplane and you have that conversation. That's how that happens, which has got full chills. You set off the rocket of desire and you let the universe, the quantum field, figure it out for you. Get out of your head, stop trying to figure out how it's going to happen, because your brain is extremely limited on how it thinks something can happen. That's why we don't need to figure it out. We just need to clear away the blocks that's preventing it from coming.
Wow.
And that's the secret sauce in the coaching.
Okay. So now coming to the question that is on my mind. So, I mean, I've personally, I've been a lot into manifestation and visualization and creating kind of the inner world so that the outer world matches. And then and everybody's going through phases, right? And I had a phase where I was like, oh, I'm doing so much visualization and I'm sitting down and every day I'm doing so much of this. And then I was like, but nothing is happening, right? And I mean that I know like you probably have your own take on that, but I'll just share
No, I've
from
been there too.
my
I'm like, where's my
experience.
stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So and then I started to shift a little in a different direction. I was like, okay, like maybe I just need to take more action, right? And the way I started doing that was actually to focus more on exercise, because I noticed I got friends who are, some of them very successful, and one friend of mine, he's like, he goes running every day. Like he runs like 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers. And I mean, that's what he does. I'm not saying everybody should run 10 kilometers a day, but I was like, there's something about creating that motion and that momentum with the body. And I went more into that, and I realized actually, yeah, if I do that, it shifts things. And there's people who have a different approach to change. You have like Joe Dispenza, for example, where I was at one of his retreats a week ago, and I love his style. I love the way he teaches. And then there's other people like when you look at Anthony Robbins, for example, who has a different approach. He's very much like create momentum, you go into your body, you still work with the beliefs. So I'm curious, and I'm aware that our time is also, we have like 7 minutes left, right? Until the full hour, which the time has passed.
And we could
pretty
talk all
quickly.
day, right? I can always talk for hours.
So I'm really curious, what is your take when you look at like the vantage point or the vehicles for change? Like, where do you see the body creating momentum? Maybe even Tony Robbins likes to do incantations. I like to do those. I feel that really kind of juices me when I'm jogging and I'm saying like positive affirmations and I'm really feeling that. But I also do the meditation, especially after the retreat now. I'm like, oh my God, this stuff really works when you shift the internal world, when you go to that quiet state, when you create that change. So how do you view that kind of let's say the more physical approach and the mental approach, or more on the inner world, but also involving the body? Like, what's your take on that?
If I understand your correct, I'm going to answer the
Mhm.
question the way that I was
Mhm.
writing a couple notes, the way that I understand
Mhm.
it. So,
Yeah.
first of all, with affirmations, we want to be really careful about affirmations,
Mhm.
because first of all, if our subconscious mind isn't aligned with the affirmation,
Mhm.
the conscious mind won't let it in. It just gets kicked out. It's like,
Mhm.
I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire. And my conscious brain is looking around saying, no, you're not.
Mhm.
Right. So it's negating it right off the out of the gate. Um, the other thing we want to understand is, if we're saying an affirmation, so we'll use money to create more wealth for us, if we're not careful about understanding what our money story is, we
Mhm.
may eventually
Mhm.
convince ourselves
Oh.
that we can be wealthy
Mhm.
because of all the things that we do, the actions we take to generate money in our life. But going back to the coach I was talking about at the beginning of the call, for her, if she creates a lot of wealth, she's also going to create scenarios on the other side that, circumstances that match.
Mhm.
So if she creates a lot of wealth, if she doesn't figure that beliefs, or figure that
Mhm.
belief system out, she's going to experience really crappy reality when it comes to money.
She gets the whole package that is
The
in
whole
her mind.
package.
Yeah,
Exactly.
got it. Yeah.
Exactly. I just want to touch on that as far as
Mhm.
affirmations, to be
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
careful about that. Because if you're asking for something that your brain is, considers not safe for you or is a threat to your survival, it's going to create a really uncomfortable situation for you trying to get that thing. So we want to release that so it becomes easier. The other thing is, I feel like, and maybe this resonates with you when you're thinking about your visualization practices.
Mhm.
What is it that you're trying to create in your life by visualizing it? And what we want to get to is, what is the feeling you're going for? So most people get into, this is why law of attraction was so frustrating for so many people for so many decades, because you're trying to visualize and manifest, if you will, right? Something in your life, a car, a person, a house, a trip, money, whatever it is. You're trying to visualize or attract this thing in your
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
And we get so focused on that thing,
Mhm.
and then it doesn't show up. And then all that resistance there, and when we're focused on trying to create an actual thing, it's already resistance, because we're using our brain to try to figure something out. And when we can just get into the feeling of how it feels,
Mhm.
then we don't care what shows up. You really don't. So if you're in the frequency of, let's say you're visualizing and meditating, and you're in the frequency of joy and bliss and abundance and love and wealth, I'm closing my eyes, I'm just saying those words, because when you say those words, they have a frequency. Now, it's not the words, it's the feeling you broadcast when you say the words, because I could have a completely different broadcast about the word love than you do. I can say abundance and it feels like free and flowing and
Mhm.
just good, right? And you can say abundance and feel like it's never going to happen for me. I'm always going to live in
Mhm.
lack and scarcity. Abundance doesn't happen for people like me. So you really want to understand what the vibration is, what the broadcast is, what your frequency is. So
Mhm.
when I would tune into joy and love and appreciation and bliss and abundance, then things would show up for me I couldn't possibly have physically tried to manifest that experience. I mean, just couldn't, just stuff would just show up. And I got to the realization where, as long as I stayed in that energy and the frequency of those things, then
Mhm.
circumstances in my life that match my belief system, what I believe, I can experience, not an elephant, that doesn't mean abundance to me, but an upgraded hotel in Dubrovnik, that means abundance to me, with my own private hot or day bed, right? So it's about what makes sense to you. But you don't care what shows up. You're like, this or something
Mhm.
better. I just want the feeling. I want the feeling of freedom. And the more I tune into freedom, the more freedom I'll feel tomorrow. And it has nothing to do with money. Every time we make something conditional about money, we're pinching it off, because you don't need money to get a 50% off Disney cruise. You don't need money to go on a cruise in Croatia. You don't need money to get stuck in Dublin overnight and go party with locals. It just happens. I can't make that up. Just like, oh, it would be nice to spend more time in Dublin because I really would like to explore the city, instead of having just a quick layover on my flight back, right? And then to have miss my flight. I was like, I couldn't even be mad. I was like, okay, I got what I asked for. I'm going to party in Dublin tonight. So it's just helping people move out of their head and into their heart, move out of the struggle of trying to make things happen and into the flow of just living free and happy, and eliminating the triggers. And so I think that's a good place for me to end,
Beautiful.
unless you have any
Beautiful.
other questions.
Yeah, I have one question. Where can people find you and connect with you? If they're like, okay, I really dig
Oh,
what Linda was saying. Please, more of
yeah,
that.
I love it. And so you can find me anywhere. If you Google Linda Eskay, you'll find Google My Business, and you'll find you'll find me on Facebook.
Hmm.
I'm a public figure on Facebook. So you can search me. My profile picture is the same across Instagram and LinkedIn. So there's no confusion. If you see me on Facebook, you'll find me on LinkedIn. And my website is still under construction. So I'm hesitant on sharing it, but it is lindask.com. It is live, but it is not complete. So when you click on some things, you might see some wonky stuff and some verbiage that doesn't make sense, or you book a call and it takes you back to the homepage, that kind of stuff. So we're working on that and should have that done in the next couple of weeks.
I love it. You're plugging it before it's ready. You're
Right.
going for it.
Well, it's live, so
I
it's
love
fine.
that. Yeah.
I'm totally authentic. I'm all about, this is who I am, and this is where I am right now on my journey, and I'm doing podcasts, and I'm speaking at engagements, and I'm traveling the world, and I'm putting myself out there. And I just want to share, my mission is just to help people get that light bulb moment so they can really understand what's happening in their brain. And with that back and forth flow, that dance that we play with the quantum field, and how powerful we really are, and how we can change our lives simply. Just takes the right guide.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing yourself with all of us, Linda.
Thank you for having me. This is really fun.
Yeah. Thank you for the great energy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. And let's hope I don't come out on a carrier, a ship carrier, and you don't come out
Aircraft
as a fish.
carrier.
Yeah. Aircraft
I'm not a
carrier,
fish.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'll open my garage door and see the cars I expect to see. Thank you,
Thank
Quantum
you so
Field.
much, Linda.
Yeah, thank you, Lucas.
Take care.
Bye.